So, hi everybody. Welcome to the Museum of Glass. We're glad you're here. Today, we'll be working with two guest artists, Corey Metcalf and David Stout. Now, neither Corey nor David is a glassmaker. They work with video projections and computer-generated forms. They do live performances where they're wired to a computer, and as they move their arms around, it changes the shapes of the projections and the sounds that the projections make. And a little later, I'm going to show you a clip from one of their performances. So often here at the Museum of Glass, we bring in artists from outside of the glass world to come here, work with our team, and sort of inject some new blood into glass making. So the people who will be making the glass will be our resident team of glass blowers. They're super skilled. They work for the museum. They have an average of 20 years experience making glass. So all the designs that we're making today are designed by our guest artists on their computers, and the actual glass objects will be made by our team. So just to get you started, I'm going to give you just a very brief introduction to how glass blowing works. Everything that we do starts out in our glass furnaces, where you see the square hole in the steel wall and doors closed. Those are the glass furnaces. There's one on each side of the studio. Behind those doors, there's a big ceramic tank. In that ceramic tank is 1,000 pounds of molten glass. We keep the molten glass at 2,100 degrees Fahrenheit, and at that temperature, the glass is like honey. So if you can imagine a giant crock pot full of honey, that's what our glass furnace is like. When we want to get it out, we take one of those steel pipes, and we dip it into the molten glass like you dip one of these into a jar of honey. We dip it in, twirl it around. A little bit of the molten glass sticks to the end of the pipe. The pipe itself is hollow, so when we blow, ball of glass blows up like a little balloon. If we want to make something larger, we dip it in, blow a little bubble, let it harden, and then we dip it in a second time, or a third time, or a fourth time. We just keep coating it with molten glass. All the glass that's in our furnaces is clear. It has no color. We buy our colored glass separately in the form of these bars. We buy them like an artist buys paint, red, yellow, blue, pink. We blow a bubble of clear glass out of our furnace. We heat up a little chunk of colored glass, and then we melt a layer of colored glass over the clear glass. We'll then dip that in more clear glass. So what you get is something that looks colored, but if you cut through it, you'd see it's just that one skinny layer. So if you look at this other sample here, this looks like it's made out of amber glass, but it's actually just a skinny lining of amber, and the rest of it is clear. But by the time you blow it out, it looks as if it's made out of colored glass. Now, in a big factory where you're going to make everything the same color, then they just melt a tank of colored glass and they just dip into it. But here, we're a bunch of artsy-fartsies, and we want to make a red thing, then a purple thing, then a blue thing. So we color each piece individually by melting on a layer of colored glass. So if you watch these guys over here, that's Sarah working on the steel table, and Casey J with her pipe in the furnace. So she's got colored glass on this one. Sarah has a bubble. And we're going to melt this glass over the bubble that Sarah has. Has anybody got any questions so far? Yes. sand. Natural gas and forced air. Yep. No, he's sending images up through the mixer. We have a bunch of cameras, and we also have one guy with a roving. Yes. Wait a minute. Everything starts out small. From a, what do they say, from a little acorn, a mighty oak grows. There you go. So we're adding the second color of glass. So we just stick a little blob on there, snip it off. When glass is hot, you can cut it with a scissors. She'll press that back a little bit, and then she's going to heat it up again and smush it till it entirely coats the original bubble. So we'll have one color on the inside and a different color on the outside. So the two colors, the one we just added was gray, and the one underneath it is a kind of a turquoisey blue. All the colors, as you see while we're working, are going to be distorted by the heat. So you're seeing a mixture of the actual color of the glass and the glow from the heat. The only way I know what colors they are is I asked them. I can't see them either. Yes, ma'am. How do you color the glass itself? The colors in glass come mostly from metals dissolved in the glass when it's first cooked up from scratch. So you take the raw ingredients of glass, sand, soda ash, and lime. If you cook them up with cobalt, you get blue. If you cook them up with chromium, you get green. A little bit of gold, you get pink. A lot of gold, you get a beautiful ruby red. Blacks are usually a mixture of colors. So usually a typical black would be cobalt, nickel, manganese, and iron. You guys have any questions? Yes, ma'am. What is the difference between glass and crystal? I'm just repeating it so everyone else knows what I'm answering. Crystal is a type of glass. They're both glass. Crystal is a glass which contains between 25 and 35% lead. The lead makes the glass denser. And the denser a clear substance is, the more it bends light. So the crystal is a little denser, it bends light more, it sparkles a little more. Nope. It's much more held in esteem in the retail world than it is in the glass world. To us, it's chocolate or vanilla. This thing is going to take about 2 hours. Yep. You're free to come and go as you please. So, or take a nap. It's kind of nice to nap in here. Well, it's about a minute, but the thicker it is, the longer it stays soft. The thinner it is, the quicker it cools. So right now, Sarah's just letting her bubble cool and stiffen a bit, and then she's gonna dip it in more clear glass. Yes, ma'am. She's making this. This is a computer-generated form designed by our guest artist. We're making it in 2 parts. The first part, that little bubble she's making, is going to become this part. Then we're going to put that in the garage, keep it warm. Then we're going to make another bubble for this part, and then we're going to stick the 2 together. Want me to talk, or do you want to talk? You can talk now, if you want. Okay. So we're going to connect our computer here to the big screen, and we'll show you the computer-generated form that we're working from. So this was designed by our guest artists, David Stout and Corey Metcalf, and they have it in a sort of virtual reality program, so you can turn it around, upside down, look at it from all angles. So we made this is the form that they designed. As we've been making it, they've sort of changed their ideas a little bit, so it won't be exactly like this, but this is the general plan. So most museums you go to, all the artists are dead. We have a live one here. So he's going to tell you a little bit about his project and his work.
Do you want to ask
David Stout. Could you put up the short interplanetary video?
So I work with another artist who will show up here shortly, Corey Metcalf. And we are digital media artists working in both sound and image. And our projects take the form of installations and performances and virtual reality pieces. And right now, you're looking at a video recording of a virtual reality piece. And you can think of the forms that we're making as still moments in one of those works that you would experience in a virtual 3D environment. And we use the data that describes those forms and turn that into sound. And then we manipulate the visual sounds to perform music of various sorts. So our work here is to really focus on individual moments in a sort of transformative process and find forms that we find pleasing to realize in a concrete way in glass. And very similar to the process of glass making, where there's both the actual sculpted form that is of concern and all of the many processes that one can explore on the surface textures, whether it's painting on glass, using other pieces of glass that have been pre-designed, such as cane or frit, which are little chunks of glass, or even powders. In the digital realm, we are actually using aspects of what's called procedural noise, the phenomenon of visual noise that is weighted and programmed in various ways to form things that we find in nature, such as the rippling of water or the formation of clouds. So very similarly, Corey and I consider the forms as one thing, the sculpted forms as one thing, and the surface texture as another when we're working inside the computer. And it's very much analogous to the way we think about making glass. back to you.
Does anybody have any questions? Yes. It's going to be blue, kind of a turquoisey blue on the inside and a gray on the outside. Yeah, all the colors are distorted by the heat. Yeah, there you are.
What virtual reality software does he use?
He used a thing called Max MPS.
Mac MPS.
Max X.
Okay.
Max.
It's actually, we created our own software.
Oh, okay.
So it's been a programming language called Max or Max MSP. There's
So
also 3D Studio Max, which is a separate thing.
it's not Unity 3D or anything like that.
No, many of my students, that's what they're using, but what we do is very different. It's generated live and everything is fluid and it's generated from mathematic equations. So
Okay.
it isn't that we pre-model something. We actually
You
are able to,
generate it in real time.
yeah, we visualize the equations and then mush the data together. Well, I think the better way to say it, we flow different amounts of data together to create forms. So everything in the environment is essentially, it appears to be alive.
You guys have any questions?
What is this going to be when it's done?
It's going to be that. See the chalk, the blue chalk drawing on the floor?
Oh, so it's going to be blue?
No, it's a different color one. This one's going to be gray on the outside and blue on the inside.
Do they change those chalks like every day based on what they're going to make?
Maybe this, I don't know what you mean.
Do you draw anything on this?
Yeah, yeah, we draw things. We draw things to help people see what the thing's going to look like.
And so that's just part of the process. It's not like
No,
art
it's just
or
something I
something.
do to help people understand what they're making.
Okay.
Because it doesn't, like a thing like this, it's an abstract sculpture. Can tell it doesn't have a name. If I just said it's sculpture, you wouldn't have any idea what it is.
Do you decide what they're going to make? Like
Nope,
you
nope.
create
I
the...
just draw whatever they tell me.
Oh, okay. So they come to you, you ask for a drawing, you make the drawing, they
No, no, no,
like...
no. You know.
They tell
Let me
you
explain
what
to
they're
you.
going to make.
So we have visiting artists come in. They
Mm-hmm.
come for 5 days. They're our guests. They can make whatever they want. So all the designs are from our visiting artists. I just render them on the floor just so the audience can know what it looks like.
Okay. Is it something they use in their process at all, or is it just for the audience?
No, no, they're gonna make an art exhibit out of it. They're gonna make an art exhibit out of it.
Okay.
spread by the wrong empire.
How heavy can the ball of glass at the end get?
Well, we dip it in, blow it up, and then we can dip it in as many times as we want. Once we get it, the more glass we have, the bigger we can make it.
So like the big products out there, that's just from like a bunch of different layers.
The big thing
So
out
like
there.
if there's like a big globe, it's like
Yeah,
they
we
just
either
dip
dip
it
it
in
in
a couple
once or
times.
twice or 6 times or 12 times
So and then it just keeps.
until you have enough glass to make whatever size object you want to make. Yes. What's the hardest? This is pretty hard what we're doing now. Just because the equations and the computers generate a shape and they don't know anything about glass blowing. So they don't know the computer doesn't know what's possible and what's not. So they've presented us with some challenging shapes. So, yeah. Well, we only put on, there's a lot of fine hand manipulation. So if we don't need gloves, we don't put them on. But sometimes when things get big and hot and things get uncomfortable, you'll see the guys put gloves on. Oh, we get little burns like you might if you worked in a restaurant kitchen. So annoying things, but not medical. No. The big danger in this shop is the repetitive motion injuries, the constant turning of the pipe, the weight being so far out at the end of the pole.
The end of that is now turning gray.
Yes. The the orangey colors you're seeing are the glow from the heat. If you think about your own home, if you have an electric stove, the burners are gray. When you turn them on to cook something, they get hot. They glow orange for a little while. Turn them off, they cool down. They return to their original color. Same with the glass. Yes, so the tip is hotter than the back end. The back end glows less, and you're seeing more of the actual color of the glass. Yes, it's going to be gray on the outside and a turquoise blue on the inside. You have any questions? Do you guys have any questions?
Amazing the way to do it. Amazing. Yep, caliper.
So there's two ways in which we heat up the glass. Sometimes we heat it up with a big round oven. Sometimes we heat it up with a torch. When we heat it up with a torch like he's doing now, it allows him to focus the heat in a particular place. He can soften just the part that he wants to shape. So he wants the shape to have a little bend in it. So he's heating up the part he wants to soften. And you can see it's no longer straight, has a little bit of a bend. Yes? Uh, Theoretically, all the glass could be melted down and reused. But practically, in this situation, we save our clear waste glass, and that gets remelted and put back in the furnace. We don't have a good way to recycle our colored glass because our big tank where we melt it is all clear, and we can't throw a little bit of red and a little bit of purple and a little bit of blue in there. You guys have any questions?
Is there any way to find out that this object is made of hand or machine, like the glass object, the final product?
Whether
Is it made by the machine or the?
no, this is I mean you're watching it being made. It's made by hand.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But there are other products like which may be making by the machine, right?
Yes, yes,
So
yeah. If you go to a wine bottle or something,
yeah.
a cheap glass at Walmart or something, that'd be made by a machine.
But is there any easy way to identify like that is?
No, I mean they just the handmade things are a little wobblier. So we can make stuff that looks like it's made by a machine. No question, sir? I do not know. I've tried to find that out, and I have not been able to. Yes, it is, but it's an old English term, and I have not been able to find the etymology of it. It's still a mystery. What? Yes, the glass furnace has glass in it. Has a big tank of molten glass. The glory hole is just a brick barrel with a gas burner inside. It has no glass in it. It's just for heating and softening the glass while you work. Yes. Particles or not really. Young lady, ma'am, would you like to win a piece of glass to take home with you? Okay, don't say yes till you hear the deal. That's dangerous. So here's the deal. You tell me a subject that you like in school. I'll ask you a question. If you get the question right, you get a piece of glass. Does that sound fair? Okay. Now you. So tell me what subject you like and tell me what grade you just finished. So the next thing we're going to do is transfer the glass from the rod it was originally blown on, where it is now, to a second steel rod called the punty. The second steel rod is going to act as a handle to hold the glass from the back while we shape the opposite end. So here comes Manny in the red shirt. He's got the punty. Oh, no, I made a mistake. We're just going to use it to stretch the opening. So you want the opening a little more pointy. So we just use the punty to grab it temporarily and stretch it. Correct. Any piece of glass in that bowl. Yeah. So now we're working with the glass in a little bit cooler state. So the gray is looking more like gray on the outside, and the turquoise inside, it's looking a little green. It's actually bluer than that, but that's the glow mixed with the turquoise blue. So it's sort of yellow added to blue, makes it look a little greeny. No, my friend Ray did. I just ask the questions and give it out. But it's homemade. We didn't buy it in the store. It's homemade. Okay, now we're going to transfer it. So we take the second steel rod, the punty, and attach it to the sculpture. Hot glass sticks to hot glass. We'll kind of bend it to the proper angle. And when we feel that bond is strong enough to hold the glass, then we'll break it away from the original pipe. We'll drip water where we want it to break and give it a tap, and off it comes. So now the end we just broke off is exposed. That end can be heated and shaped. Yes, ma'am. Do we ever disagree on the process? Sure. Well, there's usually one person leading the team. That would be Ben, tall guy in the bright blue shirt. So he has the final say. gas burner in the side.
Oh, okay.
So we had fire. Well, think of your own home. If you have an electric
Yeah.
stove,
And it gets red.
you turn it on to cook
Yeah.
something, and it glows orange.
Right?
What if you wanted to turn it blue?
Well, we can't turn it blue with heat. We can make a blue glass. I think the color make glass. To make blue glass, we add cobalt to the glass.
Oh, so you add different elements to the
Mostly
glass.
metal.
Mostly metals.
Cobalt makes it white. Cobalt makes it blue. It makes it white.
Okay.
Manganese makes it purple.
Oh, very cool. That's awesome.
But you
Should
got
have
to do
brought
that
our
when you first cook
periodic
it up.
table. Do you
You,
know magnesium? What magnesium
magnesium doesn't color glass.
doesn't color glass? Magnesium's one of those metals that you can burn underwater.
Manganese makes it purple, but magnesium, we don't use magnesium.
And then what is he making right now?
He's making that sculpture in one and blue
Oh, okay.
on the floor.
Any other questions?
Would you
Ooh.
like to win a piece of glass to take home with you?
Okay.
Well, here's the deal. You tell me a subject that you like. I'll answer your question. So this sculpture is being made in two parts. As Ben in the center bench finishes this part, Sarah and Casey J over on the left are starting the bubble for the second part. You guys have any questions? Yes, sir.
Okay, when you're finished with that piece,
Mhm.
where are you going to keep it?
We're going to keep it in the garage, that oven over there.
Okay, so keep at a good temperature
Yeah,
so that when you finish the second piece, you
exactly.
don't have to 100% heat it.
Yep. Yep. That operates at half the temperature of the furnaces. So it's hot enough to keep the glass from breaking, but it's not so hot it makes it soft.
Right.
So whatever goes in there stays warm, retains its shape. When we're ready to use it, we'll pull it out, heat it up a little extra, stick the parts together. Do you guys have any questions? Okay. So if you look over on the far left, Sarah, sitting down, has blown a bubble of clear glass. Casey J, standing up, is heating up a chunk of turquoise-colored glass, and we're going to melt the turquoise-colored glass over the clear glass. This is called a color overlay. So for these objects, we want one color on the inside and a different color on the outside. So we're going to heat up another chunk of gray, and we're going to melt that over the turquoise. There it is. 25? So as we finish the first half of the sculpture, we'll place it in that silver oven over there called the garage. That operates at half the temperature of the furnaces. It's hot enough to keep the glass from breaking, but it's not so hot it makes it soft. So whatever goes in there stays warm, retains its shape. When we're ready to use it, we'll pull it out, heat it up a little extra, and stick the parts together. So over on that workbench on the left, they're making the beginning of the second piece of this sculpture. Can we put up the furnace diagram for a moment? So that's what it looks like behind that closed door. There's a big ceramic tank with 1,000 pounds of molten glass in it. Can we put up the glory hole diagram? That's what the glory holes look like, the round ones with the doors open. So just an empty brick barrel with a gas burner in the side.
Glass hot all the time.
Yes. The furnaces are on 24/7. The glory holes are only on during the working day.
Wow, that's pretty. Say that again.
The furnaces are on 24/7. The glory holes are only on during the working day. Do you have any questions that you want to know? That's the glory hole. That's like a big brick barrel with a gas burner on the side, and it's very hot. When we put the glass in there, for a little while, the glass gets soft, so we can shake it. So in the center, Ben is rounding out that ball of glass, make it nice and even. Now we're going to blow it up to its full size and shape.
You're safe.
So we're going to squeeze the glass and make a sharp crease in it. That sharp crease will be the place where we can break the glass away from the metal pipe. The tool that he's squeezing it with is called the jacks, and making that sharp notch is called jacking it down. We're making that.
Yep.
It's his fault.
But it's like a light bulb right now.
I know, they're gonna make it totally different soon. How the heck?
We're going to blow it up and stretch it out and make the two long things, and then we'll stick them together.
The smaller bottom half is in the garage. Yeah, it's actually, it's kind of more involved than I can see because this inner lip right here has to fold back in, and that's in there a good ways. And so they have to,
The other one goes up kind of around the corner.
yeah. Yeah, so you'll get to see. This is the third one in a row that they do, so they've got it down to a science now. My wife was watching on the screen and she looked down at us doing the sentence, looked up, and they'd already fused the two pieces together. She'd been watching with rapt attention, looked away, looked back. So, but I caught her this morning and she got to see this one. So.
Well, that is, so much of this is like you spend 45 minutes or an hour watching the build up, like you said.
The assembly is.
You don't see it coming from the other side.
Yeah.
You cut that down.
Hi. Do you guys have any questions? What are they making? They are making that blue line over on the floor. Making it two parts. Where one part will be able to lower it, that's the front. This part making now the part on top of what it's going.
That's awesome. Thank you. Very cool.
So for those of you who just came in, our guest artists are David Stout, the heat's getting to me, and Corey Metcalf. And they're part of a art collaboration called Noisefold. And we have a little video we'll show you where they talk about what they're doing here and about their art. So could we play Meet the Artist?
I'm Corey Metcalf, one half of Noisefold. I live in Montrose, Colorado.
And I'm David Stout, the other half of Noisefold, and I live in Denton, Texas, which is on the north side of Dallas.
We think of noise not so much as a sound you don't really want to hear. We think of noise more as kind of a prima materia, the field of all possibility. And so we're interested in this idea of filtering or folding that information and finding form within that.
And when we use this technique in our performances, one of the things we do is that we simultaneously generate an image and take the data that comprises that image and turn it back into sound.
So this project for the Museum of Glass, we're creating obviously stable, solid forms, but it comes out of our practice of actually animating in pretty wild and very organic ways, basically mathematical surfaces, structures that are created through basically visualizing mathematical differential equations. And so we've created a system that allows us to take these surfaces and do many different things to sculpt them in real time and to animate the way that they behave and move. So we set up a virtual reality interface that allows the gaffers to get right in there and actually use a controller to rotate the forms around, change the scale, even get inside the thing if they want to.
And we found in our initial experiments that it really helped the gaffers because they quite literally could get inside and around and look at a difficult surface or component that isn't really that easily seen on a screen.
We always ask for as many drawings as we can have, and you know, with this we can look at it from any perspective. Oh, you need a punny? Okay, hold on, let me get out of here.
When we started out as Noisefold, we took a lot of equations that were put together on an open source database by Paul Bork, who's an Australian astrophysicist. And very quickly we were using techniques to blend that data, blend that geometry. And so what you end up with is these highly complex, novel forms.
We can generate much crazier forms. We're not doing that.
And we could iterate on forms that are much more traditional glass forms and make really interesting vases and things that would be more common to the glass vocabulary.
But we're trying to go for that sweet spot where it's something that we think speculatively could be made in glass, but is just a little bit harder than might be the typical form.
Or considerably more difficult, but still within the realm of possibility.
Within the realm of possibility.
While these do stand alone from the new media works that we make in terms of the projected or immersive installation environments and performances, we're definitely thinking about ways of bringing the two into conversation. And so taking the forms that we've digitally prototyped and figuring out ways of combining them in exhibition spaces with the actual glass objects that come out of the process. So we have to wait till they come out of the oven, of course, which is another different aspect of this process than the digital. And the other thing, of course, you can't just buy an extra hard drive when you get too many glass objects.
projections and 3D modeling, and they do performances. And so they've designed some crazy things on the computer, and we're making them out of glass.
Really?
Sure. See that over there? That's what we're making. The blue one.
The blue one. Oh, on the floor.
Yep.
Really?
So that part, this part they're making now, this is going to be the top shape.
Do you physically design them on the computer? Like when you program?
No, no, no. So we bring in different artists who are totally out of glass making, and then they come in here and they come up with crazy ideas, and we make them.
Okay.
We've had poets as guest artists, musicians,
Really?
ceramics, painters.
So they just come up with these ideas, and you guys are able to put it in perform.
We have a crack. Yeah, we have a crackers and glass blowers that work for the museum as employees. These guys are making the stage, as you can imagine.
So how is the glass stuck to the thing that's the stick?
Hot glass sticks to hot steel. So before we dip it into molten glass, we heat up the thickness of the rod, and the glass sticks to it.
And just like glue it. But
Yeah.
how do you get it off then?
And when we're finished, we let the rod cool off. It no longer sticks, and the glass pops off.
Really? Do you like have to sand down the bottom or
Nope,
something
nope.
to?
It just pops off naturally.
How long have you been doing this?
Me, 40 years.
How'd you get into it?
Somebody told me it was fun.
How hot are the ovens?
That oven is 22 degrees. The oven will heat the molten glass at 21 degrees. 6.5 times more cake.
Okay.
Thank you.
Like if I wanted to do glass making, are there like workshops here or somewhere?
Yeah, all over the Northwest. There are private studios that give lessons. Some people learn by getting a job at a glass shop. Some people learn by being asked to do a job in a shop. That's private.
Really?
Older days only. She's about to turn 40.
Oh, really? I get nervous every time you move it because I'm afraid it's going to fall off.
It's not going to fall off.
How long, so to make that blue, different like in various, how long do you think it'll take?
It's probably about 2 hours total.
I guess it's not even longer. So to make let's say a vase, just a regular vase, how long would that
Oh,
take?
that would probably be 20, 30 minutes.
What else should I do?
Well, the colors in glass
Oh,
come.
that was my next question. Okay, yeah, keep going.
They come from metal dissolved in the glass when we first cook it up. Cobalt makes it blue, silver makes it green. Paint, modern makes it green. Not always the color you think. Green colored glass is blue. Blue colored glass makes it
This
green.
medium? Really?
That makes it tight yellow. So Ben is heating up the neck of this shape. That part will be extra soft, and we can bend it. So we want to make a little crease in there. Made a big bar of clear glass. We laid 2 sets of stripes, one on each side, and then we twisted it. Twist around. As we stretch them, they get skinnier and skinnier. Make all sorts of stuff. Well, glass is made out of 3 things: sand, soda ash, and lime. Sand is a bulk, it's mostly melted sand. Soda ash is a chemical, lowers the melting temperature. Lime stabilizes the melting temperature. Put those 3 things in a big clay pot, cook them overnight at 2400 degrees, and they all melt together basically. No, no, molten. Melted at 2400 degrees. It's like a big pot of honey. No, no, it's like a big jar of honey. Let's show you. So the glass didn't have furnace there. Can we put up the furnace diagram for a moment? So that's what it looks like behind those closed doors. There's a big ceramic tank with 1,000 pounds of glass in it. The glass is kept at 2100, and at that temperature it's like honey. So we take the metal pipes that you see them working with, and we dip it into the molten glass like you dip one of these into a jar of honey. So we dip it in, twirl it around, a little bit sticks to the end of the pipe. The pipe is hollow, so when you blow, ball of glass on the other end blows up like a balloon. Nope.
I was hoping there was more.
Oh, no, no. With this, to make those, we just rolled a big cylinder solid clear glass, and we melted some stripes on the side, stuck it to another piece of glass, and then twisted it. Twisted and stretched. Does anybody have any questions? Yes. The blower. You mean the torch? The torch allows us to focus the heat in a particular place. We can make one part of the glass, the part we want to shape, extra hot and extra soft without disturbing the rest of the shape. Yes? The colors in glass come mostly from metals dissolved in the glass when you first cook it up. Cobalt makes it blue, chromium makes it green, manganese makes it purple. Are we entering the loud music phase? So we're going to drill a small hole in that form. That's an ordinary electric drill, but chucked up in it, instead of a drill bit, is a sharpened rod of tungsten. We heat the tungsten rod till it's glowing, and then we can drill right into the hot glass. When we're ready to take it off the pole, we'll drip a little water where we want it to break. That'll crack the glass just there. We'll tap on the pipe, and off it'll come. We'll be doing that in about a minute or two. So we've stuck on the second steel rod called the punty. This second steel rod will act as a handle to hold the glass while we shape the opposite side. We made a special kind of punty called a blow punty. So we've used a hollow pipe and we made a little tube on the end. So this way we can not only hold the sculpture, but we can blow air into the form to keep it inflated. Yeah, so this is the part that they have over here. You're going to make a flat bottom on this, and then you're going to take this part and push it inside.
It's the bottom half they're working on. It's the top half.
Yes.
I think I got it. I think I got it pictured in my mind.
So the flat bottom, and then they're just going to take the second piece, the smaller piece, and just push it up inside. Make the bottom cut.
Make the bottom.
Force it concave. Do you guys have any questions? Nope. Nope. You guys? Do you have any questions? Do you have any questions? This is called an annealer. It's for cooling the glass down very slowly. So it's an oven. We heat it up to 920 degrees. We place all the stuff we make in there, and then we slowly turn the temperature down so it doesn't break. So he's going to squeeze that little pointy end and cut that little nub off. And then he's going to flatten the bottom.
We're standing in the zone.
Oh, so this is the sensor there. Turn it so we're looking down into this thing. Yeah.
It's a little hard to.
Yeah, yeah. No, okay. Yeah, I was wondering whether you're pushing it in, but it doesn't have a kind of
This
folded edge.
No, no, it's different. We're doing it differently.
Yeah.
We don't worry about it.
No, no, no. I was thinking because I looked at it before I drew it, and I was thinking I don't
See
remember
how
that.
There's also that twist. If we were really doing this, we would twist.
Oh, right, right.
If we wanted to take more time, we could have tried to exactly do this.
Right.
The kind of thing we do if we were in a 2-week residency.
I was just curious about that detail. Okay. Blue drawing right there. We're not making it exactly like that drawing. He's changed his mind a little bit, but that's generally it. Yes, ma'am. What is the purpose of why is the building shaped like this? There's 3 reasons. First and foremost, it looks really cool. That's number 1. Number 2, the building is designed to act like a giant chimney. So there's a natural updraft of air going up out the top. The third reason is historical. Along this waterway, before the museum was here, there were a number of sawmills. The sawmills had big cone-shaped metal buildings where they burned the waste wood from the sawmills to dry the lumber. When the architect Arthur Erickson, who designed this museum, saw those buildings, that's what gave him the idea to make the building in this shape. He's opened it up and folded it in, and then he's going to put.
And then he's going to go in, so it's like half the work's already done. You're going to join those two together?
Yep. Just minutes away. So we're getting ready to join the 2 parts. Sarah, over on the left, has this part. Ben, in the bright blue shirt in the center, has this part. Now we're about to join the 2 parts of the sculpture together. heater. So it heats the first thing it strikes. So we put the paddle between the glass and the hand. The paddle gets hot and the hand does it. So we're heating up the bottom there a little extra so that we can stick the second piece to it. Hot glass sticks to hot glass. Do you guys have any questions?
Basically, what are they making?
What?
What are they making?
The blue drawing over there on the floor. A sculpture. What? No, it's not anything practical. It's not a bus. It's not a drink glass. Yes. Not today. So here we go. Hot glass sticks to hot glass. Put one form inside the other. So when we broke it off, the punty, the second steel rod, we left the little glass on there on purpose. Now we're going to trim that little nub of clear glass off. So we'll take the torch, heat and soften that little nub, and then we'll cut it off. As Ben in the light blue shirt is working on the nub, his assistant is keeping the joint on the punty warm and the base of the sculpture warm, so those don't crack while we're working on something else. Yes? Right. Okay. Well, when we finish these objects, we got to put them in a special oven. That oven is 920 degrees. So if we want to reach in and put the stuff way in the back, we have to wear a suit made out of Kevlar that'll protect us from the heat for that moment while we're diving into the 900-degree oven. The low man on the totem pole. So everything we make like this has to be cooled off slowly. We have a special oven called an annealing oven. Each day we heat it up to 920 degrees. We place all the objects we make during the day in there, and then at night we cool everything down all at once. So we're going to take the sculpture off this metal rod, place it in the annealing oven.
Is there a superstition about clapping before they go in the oven? I always wait till they put it in the oven if it's not happening.
Oh, when they get like at this point. Well, yeah, they're the last people you want to make
So
nervous. Yes. Not good. It's like, you know, it's like right now they ignore all the little sounds because they can't hear them.
So we're almost there. KCJ in the green jacket has put on some Kevlar gloves. When she grabs that sculpture, it'll be 1,000 degrees. At 1,000 degrees, the sculpture will be hard. It won't no longer change shape. We'll drip some water where we want the glass to break. The cold water hits the hot glass and cracks it. And then just a light tap. And off it comes. So let's have a big hand for our guest artist, David Stout, and Corey Metcalf, and the Museum of Glass Hot Shop team. So that concludes our demonstrations for today. Does anybody have any questions or anything? Well, enjoy your evening then.